As a child, then, first, obviously, you want to emulate your father, your parents, what they do, because they are your heroes.
Yes.
You want to do what they do, and here is Aasif Karim, who is not, he's mega star, he was an icon.
Can you imagine?
As I mentioned, so you want to emulate him, you want to copy what he does. And secondly, as we grew older and when we were following the sports in the country, ultimate goal is that you want to play for your country.
Yes.
That's the ultimate, that is, so I had already set my sight as a youngster that I'd set myself, of course I didn't talk about it with anybody, but I was talking to myself that, I'm going to set the standards, I'm going to work hard because my ultimate goal is to play for my country.
Hello, and welcome to Right Place, Right Time. My name is Stephen Maika. Aasif Karim, welcome to Right Place, Right Time podcast.
Good morning, Stephen. Thank you very much for this invitation.
It is an amazing honor to have you. And you just met my wife before we started the show, and I was telling you the entire week, I've been all over the place saying, I can't believe this is happening. Mm-hmm. So thank you so much for honoring us with this wonderful, offering to come to the show.
Thank you. And it's nice to be here, and I look forward to this interview.
Wonderful. So when it comes to introducing Aasif Karim, it's a very hard task because you've done so much. You have done so much, and you continue doing so much. So the intro I'm going to do right now does not do you justice. But I know as we go through this story, more and more people get to understand who you are and what you do and what you've done for this amazing nation. So, listeners and everyone who's watching, starting from home. So Aasif is a father and he's a husband to Nazneen, a wonderful lady, and a father to 4 children. He's a businessman. He's a chairman and CEO of Safina's Group, and we'll talk about that as we go. And apart from that, he comes from a family that has been into sports for over a century. He is what we call an ambidextra. Multi-gifted, left hand, right hand, you name it. He's represented this country in tennis, and we'll talk about that. He's represented this country in cricket, and that's why we are having this episode about the greatest era in Kenyan cricket, across all levels. He's done business, he has a foundation, and we'll talk about the exciting other projects that he's doing. So, as I said, the introduction does not do justice, but as you track with us this conversation, you'll get to see how amazing Karim is. So, welcome so much. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good stuff. So, I would like to take you way back to the early 20s when your grandfather came into this country. And I know I'm starting from there because your grandfather was also into sports. All the way down to you and to your children. So I'd like to start from there in terms of just understanding how this wonderful generation started.
Yeah, in the early 1900 plus, a lot of Indians were immigrating from the subcontinent for various reasons. And obviously one of the main reasons was the railway that was being done. And then also the British colonial control in India was also making very difficult for the business. The economic conditions were very tough. And so a lot of Indian community from various parts of India started migrating. So the people from Gujarat, where my forefathers come from, migrated more towards East Africa. The people from South India went more towards the West Indies. So when the people from Gujarat started coming in, my grandfather migrated here in 1926, which is going to be 100 years next year. So he came here in 1926, trying to look for a greener pasture. And obviously, I'm still baffled. And when I think about it, how did they do the journey? There were no aircrafts. There were no big ships. And so you come in a dhow. The risks that you're taking, you don't know where you're going to. You're going totally from one continent to another continent. So that I think was courage.
Yeah.
That was bold and something that if I'm sitting here today, it's thanks to the decisions that they made.
Yeah.
So in 1926, he arrived in Mombasa, stayed, I think, for about 6-7 years, and then went back to India, I guess maybe to wind up and to maybe try and bring the rest of the other family members. And then in 1937, we permanently moved to Mombasa, Kenya.
Okay.
And that has been the start of the journey.
Okay. That's fine. I mean, throughout history and when we were in the history classes, we were always taught about the railway and how most of the people from the subcontinent came here because of the railway. But now you're introducing a new angle where there's some who just wanted something better than what they were experiencing there, which is an amazing thing. I also know the British Raj in India was a big issue at that particular time. I don't know if when your grandfather came, was it before that was before the partition? That was before...
Yes, well before the partition, partition was 1947.
1947. Also the upheaval, Jinnah and all these guys are not started yet. Okay, that's good. So he landed in Mombasa, started doing business?
Yeah, well, obviously when he came, he was trying to look at what opportunities were there, and then he did various things. He worked for as a clerk in a law firm.
Yeah.
And then because of his statute and his forthrightness on many issues and very honest character, he became an inspector of the shops. In those days, people had to sell items at a fixed price. And so he would be the inspector going around to check and to make sure that all the dukawalas and the people that are selling things are going by the rules and the regulations and the laws at that time.
So this was the colonial government? This
is the colonial government, yeah. So I would say in the early 30s and 40s, is that's what he was doing.
Okay, that's fine. And of course I did some research on him, so I found that he was also playing cricket at that particular time.
Yes, in fact, he was a sportsman himself. And of course in India, there is what they call the gully cricket.
Yes.
Where you play on the roadside and all that. So when he came to Mombasa, and in those days, the colonial government gave each, people were based on communities. So there was a Hindu community, there was a Muslim community, and the Muslims had their own sect of communities. So each one had their own land that was allocated, and then each community built their own sports facilities.
Yeah.
So Jaffrey Sports Club, which was then known as Ithna Ashari Sports Club, was formed in 1921. Yeah, and then in 1926, when cricket started and when he was here, and I guess maybe he may have initiated it also. So he was the first captain of the club in 1926.
Okay. So this was mainly just out of leisure, or was it more competition within the coast region, or it was mainly just to...
Well, in those days, it was basically an outlet. It was a social event where people got together in the evenings to play, and nobody thought of any competition, because really you are just come to another continent, you're just gathering friends to have an outlet. As sports, as we always say, brings people together. So maybe that was one of the areas to bring the community together, maybe to enjoy the moment, then share challenges, because each one was having its own different challenges at that very time. And everybody was trying to see that they can all grow as individuals, as family, and as a community.
All right. That's it. Then he stays in Kenya. Of course, he comes with a family. He had children by the time he was coming to Kenya, or they were born here? Your father and...
he had children already when he came. But when he went back in 1932-33, my father was born in 1935 in Mumbai. And so he was 2 years old when they all came back in 1937.
So that's your father, Yusuf?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, so, cross on to your father. Before even we get to that, when you were born, was your grandfather still alive? Or he had,
yes, I was born 3 days after independence in 1963, 15th of December. My grandfather passed in 1971.
Oh, okay. So he was alive.
In fact, he was born in 1890.
Okay.
So if I had that, he was 81 when he passed on.
Okay, that's fine. Good. So your father, Yusuf, comes in, and I've seen, just like you, was a great tennis player and also a great cricket player. So, was it because you saw your grandfather do it, or this was just pure passion as well? Yeah.
I would say it's a combination of both. And I think the key, and then I always have been asking myself that when you have a migrant coming into this country, obviously the main reason in those days was that you want to look for greener pastures, to make your family better in terms of good facilities, get a good job. And obviously that was one of the main things they do. But what baffled me as I was doing my own research, when I was doing some historical things on the family, is that how he encouraged all his children to get into sports.
Okay.
Not as only a hobby, but to try and see that they could go to another level.
Okay.
And all my uncles did quite well in sports, but my father took it to another level.
Yeah. That's probably that was a thing that was, I don't know if it was happening in the Asian community, but when you look at the African community at that particular time, the idea was go to school, get a job. All these other things, you're wasting your time. So, to have a parent at that particular time who was willing to push the children into sports as well, that must have been someone who was very forward-minded. So that means someone well-educated and all those things. Yeah.
That's a very good point you made. Yeah. Not only was that in the African, it was in all communities, including the Asians, where sports was regarded as just a social event. That you go and do little sports, go and have a little fun, but your focus must be on education only, and then get a job or get into business.
Yeah. Okay. So we talk about your dad. So playing sports, cricket and tennis, still at the same clubs, because I believe at that particular time there was still that form of segregation in terms of some places you couldn't go.
Yes, correct. In fact, so the Jaffrey Sports Club, or as I said earlier, it was known as International Sports Club, and the name changed after independence to Jaffrey Sports Club. So obviously each community had their own clubs that they would participate. So the club had the facility of cricket, tennis, volleyball, and football.
Okay.
And so those are the sports that were being played very strongly. And cricket was a huge thing for the community, because it was a big game. Remember, the subcontinent, cricket is huge.
Yes.
Right now it's huge in the subcontinent, but it was also big in those days.
Okay.
So cricket was kind of the talk of the town during the week of what's coming and what happened in the previous week, and all the discussions on the sport.
So I'm sorry to take you back. You mentioned something about India, and I just thought that came to my mind, because I know the British at that particular time, during the high days of the British colonial British Empire, when they were saying, the sun never sets on the British Empire. There were so many countries, and the British had football, they had rugby, they had cricket. Would you know why, out of all those sports that the British were playing, because they took all those sports to the countries they were in, why India really grasped cricket? Would you, because I know, for example, here in Kenya, they were here, but football is more popular, and we can say the same thing to other British colonials. But India, probably West Indies, you see cricket, but particularly India. Is there a particular reason why you think India really grasped cricket?
Well, the good thing that the British did is that whatever sports, wherever they went, they took all their sports to that, and because that I thought was a very important thing. I don't know the exact reason why, but it seemed that the Indians got the hook with cricket. Cricket being so big. Yeah. Of course, they do play football. Like on the east side of India, in the Calcutta region, football is very big. Yeah. They're not very strong, but it's a very passionate sport in that part of the country. But cricket was big from then, and always has been a big thing. So I guess maybe it's something that they got hooked into, something that were maybe the body or the culture accepted that sport much more easily.
Okay, all right. But your father didn't pursue it professionally. He just did it as a part-time and still did business.
Yeah, in those days, as I said, sports was played more of a hobby. It was more of a fun.
Okay.
But he took it to another level. He took it, as I said, when I was doing some research, he started playing tennis when he was only 14. And he bought his first tennis racket for 5 shillings then at an auction, which had, if you look at the tennis racket, the strings were even broken.
Yeah.
So he bought that and he became a champion within 2 years. But in those days, you could only play amateur. There was no professional, or they would not even think on those lines, because he was living in a small town called Mombasa. So even traveling from Mombasa to Nairobi was a novelty. It was not a normal thing. It was a big deal if you had to travel. So economic conditions played an important role. The cultural played an important role. So there were so many constraints on that. And then, of course, you being, if I use the word second-class citizen, because the whites were supposed to be the first-class citizens.
I like that word, yes.
So, you are just a normal thing. So as he progressed in his performances, both in cricket and tennis, he enjoyed a lot of respect from the colonial masters. And in those days, if the colonial master called you Mr. Karim, umefika. You have reached at a certain stage. You know what I mean? So he enjoyed a lot of respect over the years on how he did, and then to win on for 25 years. To be unbeaten. I think it should be a world record.
Okay. And I was watching a documentary, and I will talk about that as we go, that you've done about your family. And you could see the entire family was, just because of him playing, when you guys were born, you and your brother just caught on to the same bag and jumped onto it. So was that a great influence from Mzee?
100%. In addition to it being in the DNA, the talk on sports was on a daily basis. When we were kids, you would see him in the newspaper. It was a big deal. Because those days in the newspapers, I think in the early 50s, 60s, maybe it was once a week print, or maybe later on it became the only medium. And then you see your father in the newspaper. It's a huge thing. And then you see trophies at home, and then you see his tennis rackets, his cricket stuff, people talking to him. It was a huge novelty, even just to shake his hand in those days, to come and, meet him and to talk to him. So all those influences and his encouragement, along with my mom, played a very significant role. Again, remember, it was, even in our era, in those days, in the early 70s, was more of a hobby than a sport as a career.
So, the reason why I've taken a few minutes to talk about your father is because, he is a major figure in Mombasa. And for guys who probably in Mombasa and are walking to a street called Aasif Karim, is it street or road?
Yes, it's a road.
It's in Kizingo, I think.
Yes, it's in Kizingo. In fact, it's right behind where he used to play tennis, called Muita Tennis Club, where he won for 25 years. The mayor in 2011 honored posthumous to call it Aasif Karim Road.
So anyone who's in Mombasa, if you're walking down that road, just know that the name you see there is the name of a legend. So I know sometimes you might walk through a road and not understand why is this road named after this fellow. So that's why the road is named after Aasif Karim. So 3 days after independence, 1963, 15 December, somebody comes into this world. And this guy is called Aasif Karim. I know you're pretty young. I always want to understand how it was at that particular time. Of course, 63 you wouldn't know because you were a child. But basically, how was it living in Mombasa that particular time, at 60s, early 60s?
Mombasa was a lovely town, even now, except that the population has grown big time now. But it was a small town, a close-knit community where everybody almost knew everybody. The old town is where most people lived, and then in the 70s and the 80s, it kind of extended to other areas of town, including now Nyali. Nyali has grown and all that. So it was a very peaceful, laid-back town, Mombasa, where even now when people from Nairobi want to have a break, the first place they would think of is Mombasa, because it's nice, laid-back, beautiful beaches, friendly people, good food, and people accessible and very hospitable town. And people from Mombasa always enjoyed having visitors and make them feel at home. So it was a very nice cosmopolitan city where people coexisted and had a wonderful time.
So where were you raised exactly in Mombasa, so that the people in Mombasa can recognize their fellow?
I was born in Old Town. So the nearest, or to make it easy for people to understand, is where Fort Jesus is. Right. So it was like 2-3 minutes from Fort Jesus in the Old Town. That's where I was born. From a very small, should you say, village in that kind of area, and then as we grew because everybody lived around that and as we grew then, and as people become more affluent. Then people started moving out of the old town to make their own homes and those families. Because remember, those days, 10 to 15 people lived in a home, in a small home. And there's a statement saying that we had 2 bedrooms then and 10, 12 people living. Now we have a 10-bedroom house and 2 people are staying. So the scenario has changed now, how the whole thing has gone.
And it was normal. I mean, it wasn't an issue.
Not only was it normal, it also of economic conditions. The situation also forced you, because you had to survive, and everybody was there for each other. Everybody rooted for each other. Everybody was there. One was down, there was somebody next to you holding your hand. And so it was a very, very pleasant situation. And I'm sure the yesteryear people who may be listening to this podcast will appreciate what I'm trying to say. And we are missing that period. We're missing where people were together, we were there for each other, we would communicate with each other, we could share a lot of things with one another. Now, the ball game has changed, unfortunately.
On their own. So school, which school did you go to?
I studied at Alibai Panju Primary School. That again was a community school. I think that school was formed in the early 50s.
It's still there?
It's very much there. It has really grown. It now has a secondary school. It's almost a college level now. And then on my high school, I went to Aga Khan High School.
Aga Khan High School. Mombasa, Aga Khan, where Aga Khan is in Mombasa. And at what particular point during your childhood did you start getting involved in tennis or cricket? Which one came first and at what particular time?
Well, both came simultaneous, because as we were young, post the school, you would inevitably go to the club. That was more like a daily ritual to go for people like us who are ingrained into sports. And so in that Jaffrey Sports Club, cricket, tennis, volleyball and football, as I told you earlier, was what was being played. And because my father was in tennis, it was an auto to be involved in tennis. And cricket was more of a communal sport, so that it was a joke then that any boy born in our community would walk out with a bat and a ball on birth. So it was in the DNA. It was ingrained that you would play that sport. And so that's how it started, and it was played for fun. Of course, there was also cricket in school. So we used to play that as kids, as youngsters, play outside our little homes, the gully cricket as we call it. So we used to play cricket, and then that's how the whole journey started.
And at what particular point did you now start getting serious? Because I've seen from some of the research I was doing, you started winning tournaments at a very early age, especially tennis. So did you reach a point where you said, now, I think stop playing for fun and now I'm going to get serious with this?
Indeed. I mean, as a child then, first, obviously, you want to emulate your father, your parents, what they do, because they are your heroes. You want to do what they do, and here is Aasif Karim, who is not... he is mega star, he was an icon.
Can imagine,
as I mentioned. So you want to emulate him, you want to copy what he does. And secondly, as we grew older and when we were following the sports in the country, ultimate goal is that you want to play for your country.
Yes.
I mean, that's the ultimate, that is, so I had already set my sight as a youngster that I'd set myself, of course I didn't talk about it with anybody, but I was talking to myself that, I'm going to set the standards, I'm going to work hard because my ultimate goal is to play for my country.
Wow. Yeah, so you start playing junior tennis, you start winning tournaments in Mombasa. What does that do to you in terms of how you must be over the moon at that particular time?
Yeah, it was 1975. It was the first time that a junior tennis tournament was held in Mombasa, because traditionally, Nairobi always dominates. Anything to do with sports, be it business, be it positions, even now, Nairobi. Everything is Nairobi. So it was my father who had, after his retirement, he wanted to give back to sports. So one of the areas that he felt was to organize a junior tennis tournament so that we would get players from all over the country, especially from Nairobi, to come down and also play. And so the Mombasa youngsters also get an opportunity to play them because, again, traveling then was not normal. It was not even affordable, for people from Mombasa to go there. So the first tournament was held in 1975, and I was playing the under-12 tennis tournament. And that was the first time I won the tournament. And I beat the number one Kenya player then called Ian Karanja. Yeah, he was a big name in Nairobi.
He came down to...
He came down to play. So it was a huge thing for me. I mean, you win at the age of 12, you feel good. And so that, again, became the start of self-belief. I started working harder. And then my dad started encouraging. And a year or 2 years later, I started traveling to Nairobi to play the junior tournaments. And I remember in 1977, I won the Kenya Junior under 14.
National,
yeah. That was 1977.
So the full 3 sets, I mean, the works,
yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah. And remember, the surface played in Mombasa was on cement, it was hard courts. While in Nairobi, the tennis courts were mostly on maram. We used to call maram the sand. Even having never played also. So adjusting was very quick. But I said I was determined that I wanted to do well.
Well, before I get into some of the honors you got while playing tennis, you've mentioned hard court, because I normally see this whenever I'm watching sports. You'll see clay, the French is clay, the grass in Wimbledon. I don't know the Australian and the American one. Are they hard courts as well?
Yeah.
What's the Australian in a nutshell?
Used to be in the yesteryears grass, but they converted into hard courts, like the US.
So what does that affect the spin, or what impact does the surface have on the...
A lot of things affects because it depends on the speed. It also the weather plays an important role. Which period of the year are you playing? So a lot of those things that many people who are watching may not realize that a lot of adjustments the players have to make. In terms of even the rackets that you use, the training that you do. The intensity on clay for a player is much more. You got to be more strong, endurance-wise, to play for a longer period than you would play on a grass court. Grass court is more of a fast sport. It's a fast tennis.
Yeah, and the reason why I'm asking this is on a legacy point of view, because I know there are people who will watch this and listen to this podcast who love tennis. And so getting some of this advice in terms of the different turfs and how it works, I mean, is very important. So predominantly Kenya is more of, or it's a mix. The courts across the country, is it a mix? So predominantly clay, or it's a mix?
No, we are not clay. We call it maram. It's quite slippery. And that's dominated in Kenya. The only hard courts then was in Mombasa. On the hot conditions and the humid conditions. So people from Nairobi did struggle. I mean, it's like for a Mombasa player to come to Nairobi, he has to adjust to the high altitude. Living on the coast. Now you're coming to a 5,000 above sea level. The breathing changes. The whole atmosphere changes. The court condition changes. Even the shoes that you wear are sometimes different from what you would use on a hard court. So there was a lot of those adjustments to do, and if you want to be a champion, you've got to be very quick and be able to adapt, to adjust, and to do what needs to be done.
My name is Aasif Karim and I am the chairman of Safina's Foundation that organizes the Kenya International Sports Film Festival. We're going to have the 8th edition, this time from Mombasa Hybrid, where you can watch online on all our social media platforms. We receive well over 1,000 movies from over 100 countries. The jury will then select 40 to 50 top movies in sports, from short documentaries to long documentaries, animation and feature films. Reach out from the 16th to the 19th of October 2025. We look forward to seeing you in our festival. Sports unites people, sports movies inspire society. Thank you very much.
So we're in the 70s now. So you're excelling in tennis, you're winning tournaments, and I will talk about some of them as we go. But you're also playing cricket. How are you balancing between the two? I mean, do you go to the tennis club on Monday and cricket on Tuesday? How are you doing it?
Very good, yeah. So I used to, as a kid, I would have my own little diary.
Yeah.
And said that Monday I'm going to do this, Tuesday I'm going to do this, Wednesday, so every day I had a schedule that I'll play tennis on this day, I'll do cricket on this day, this is a rest day. On the weekends I'll do both, so it was just as the moment came in.
Yeah.
But I never thought that, what I'm doing then, is going to lead to where we finished.
Yeah.
So it was something I was ingrained. For me, sports was a day-to-day life.
Okay.
It was not a by the way.
Okay.
I would read a lot of sports magazines. There used to be a magazine called World Tennis.
Okay.
So, my dad used to subscribe to it. So we would anxiously wait for that magazine in those days to get it in the post from the US.
Yeah.
There is no WhatsApps or the digitals in those days. I'm talking about you waiting at the post. So every day he comes home and says, "Did we get the magazine?" I say, "No, it hasn't come," because, you had no control on when your post is going to come. So, it would be a huge thing to get that magazine. So you are now reading about people you have heard of.
Okay.
You want to try and imitate, or you want to read what they tell you on what you need to do, how to play your backhand, how to play your forehand, what do you need to do to train yourself. So I used to deeply read into those things and try and follow, whatever little I could.
Yeah. So what kind of international stars were you looking up to at this time in both sports?
In tennis, of course, when I was growing up, we had Bjorn Borg, the Swedish champion. We had Jimmy Connors.
Okay.
And then as I was at the teenage age, John McEnroe was a huge name. Ivan Lendl was a huge name. And so those are the big names. In the ladies, we had Chris Evert.
Okay, yes.
Martina Navratilova. Those were the big names. And then Billie Jean King in the years. And in the early 60s, which we only heard about, we had people like Stan Smith.
Okay.
You had Arthur Ashe, Rod Laver. And those were the players in tennis. And in cricket, we used to look up to the West Indian team.
Okay. Oh yeah.
You had Clive Lloyd.
Yeah.
Was a huge name in the Caribbean island.
Yeah.
Of course, the Viv Richards was one of the greatest cricketers we've had. So West Indies was a team that we used to look up in the 70s and 80s because they were the powerhouse in world cricket.
Okay. So now we are slowly going into the 80s. So we've talked about tennis and you're featuring in all these tournaments. But in cricket, you get a call-up to the national team. How did that happen?
So what happened in 1980, Mombasa Sports Club was playing in the National League.
Okay.
So every weekend or every other weekend, the entire team would travel to Nairobi on a Saturday.
By road?
By road, in a matatu kind of a bus. Play the game, reach Saturday evening, play the game on Sunday and go back either by that 12-seater matatu or by train.
Yeah.
And that started in 1979 when Mombasa Sports, because they were the leading team in Mombasa, so they were invited to play in the National League. So in 1980, some of the senior cricketers then who had a huge respect for my dad visited him and said, "Look, we would like your son Aasif to play for Mombasa Sports Club because he's doing well, because I was doing well in the local in Mombasa." But, never thought of anything other than that. So my dad spoke to me and said, "Look, these guys want to want you to play for them. And in those days, when your father said something, it was like you want to do it. If he says it, then there's no questions asked. Because he will think the best for you. So I was excited and joined the club. So that was my first season to play the National League with almost limited experience at that level. So I used to travel. I was also doing my O-levels. It was my final year in high school. But my parents supported it. They said, well, you balance your education, but this is a good opportunity. Go ahead and play. So I had a very good season, and I was in the squad.
Were you a bowler?
I was a left-arm spinner and a batsman, but more known for left-arm spin. So I had a very good season, got a lot of wickets, and so every game I was having a good performance. And so there was a tour to Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe had just become independent, remember?
So the Smith...
I remember it was known as Rhodesia.
Rhodesia, yes.
And Harare was the capital. I think Salisbury was the capital in the days of Rhodesia. This is another history.
Yes.
And so there was a squad of 30 members and 15 were to be selected. And when the team was announced, unfortunately, I was not selected. And so I was on the reserve bench.
Who's doing this selection? Did we have like an association?
We had Kenya Cricket Association. They had the national administration. Then there was a selection committee, with renowned people, experienced cricketers who would know what to do. But again, remember, I'm from Mombasa.
So
you are still regarded a by the way. You're a by the way. So fortunately or unfortunately for the player who got injured, was a left-arm spinner. Just 3 or 4 days before the tour. So, of course, when I was not selected, you obviously get disappointed. But I said, where am I? I'm just come in. I had a good season. I'm in the squad, so not bad. But obviously, then as a human being, you get a little greedy and say, I wish, I should be selected. So anyway, I was not selected, fine. And the left-arm spinner, Harish Sumaria, got injured 3-4 days before the tour. And so I was called the 11th hour, if you want to call it. It's just a day before the tour. Mombasa, that you're being selected and you need to be in Nairobi within 24 hours. So obviously there was all excitement, and all that. And so that was my first tour at the age of 17. I was only 17 when I first played for Kenya. And that tour was on Christmas Day, 1980. We flew to Harare.
So, against a club there or against the national?
Against the Zimbabwe national team. And in those days, Kenya was a very dominant cricketing team in the East and Central Africa. So, if you look at the history, in 1966, there was a tournament organized between Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Zambia. It was an annual tournament, and Kenya would more or less dominate every year on the tournament. So, and Zimbabwe was unheard of then because they were still under the colonial rule.
Cecil Rhodes.
So they were not part of any, including South Africa. So when Zimbabwe got this independence, it now became a test to see how strong Kenya is against Zimbabwe, because Zimbabwe were predominantly playing against or within the South African domestic cricket. And the standards were very high, but they had not played anybody other than within themselves and with South Africa. So
you go to Zimbabwe?
We go to Zimbabwe and we got a thrashing. We got a thrashing. We were totally outplayed by Zimbabwe because that was a solid cricketing nation who are very strong, very professional, and it became an eye-opener for Kenya to realize that there's a lot of work we need to do if we are to match the standards of where we are.
2 things about the tour. Number one, what was the makeup? How was the makeup of the team? Was it at the beginning of the pod? You talk about the segregation in terms of Asians and the Europeans. So, was it makeup of the team? Were there Africans in there? Was it purely Asian, quote unquote?
That was the first time that we had 3 Africans that played for the country. That was the beginning of the African players making an impact
Okay.
to our national team.
Okay.
It was Kenneth Odhiambo, late Kenneth Odhiambo,
Okay.
Thomas Opondo,
Okay.
and Tom Tikolo.
Tom Tikolo.
Yeah, those three were the first Africans to represent the national team.
Tom is he a brother or is it the father to Steve?
He's the brother. He's
brother.
the elder brother of Steve and
Okay.
David.
Okay. That's good. So 30 people go to Zimbabwe. Did you get a
No,
chance?
15.
15. Oh, 15.
30 were in the squad,
Okay.
and then 15 were selected.
Okay. So did you get a chance to play?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
In fact, the very first match, and on my first delivery,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, the first delivery is called, first delivery on debut when you're playing for the first time.
Yeah.
And I got the wicket of Duncan Fletcher, who was the captain of the Zimbabwe team.
He was a coach of England at particular time.
No, later on.
Later on.
He became the coach for England,
yes.
and for India.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he was a huge name. I mean, Duncan Fletcher
He's Zimbabwean.
in Zimbabwe was a huge name. He was a captain,
Yeah.
a formidable cricketer. And so I had not even any clue. And they said, wicket on debut. I said, what does that mean? So they were explaining to me
I can imagine.
what it means that on the first delivery, you bowl and you got a wicket.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, did you ever meet him later in your life, and or did you remember that moment?
Yes, in fact, we met in 2003 World Cup.
Yeah.
So at that time, he was, I think, coaching England.
Yeah.
So we met socially a little bit, and then we kind of reminisced for a couple of minutes on that, and he sure did remember. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Very good.
Yeah.
He's a very honorable human being,
Yeah.
very sportsman, and even on that tour to Zimbabwe, I mean, after the game, and there's a cocktail party and a social. So he did talk to me. In fact, I went up to him and I asked him for some advice because I always believed in respecting our seniors because they have a lot of experience and there's a lot that you can learn from. So I went up to him and asked him, what are some of the tips that you can give me? Because remember, I was only 17 making an entry to international cricket and to play at that level. So he gave me a few tips which I still do remember.
Okay. And of course, 80s was big in terms of tennis, but I just want to touch something on cricket I've just remembered. So in the 1980, you go to Zimbabwe. But before that, and as I was doing my research, I discovered that the first World Cup was held in 1975 in England. And Africa had a team, and it was an East African team. So all the countries came together. I mean, how was that working? Was there like an East African federation, or how was that working?
Yeah, let me give you a little background on history of cricket in Kenya.
Yeah.
The first time cricket was played in Kenya was in 1896 in Mombasa.
Yes.
That was how cricket started in this area. So obviously then we had the settlers versus the Europeans versus the non-Europeans.
Yeah.
The first time it was played was in 1933. And it was an annual fixture and it was a big deal. I mean, the entire white community and the Asian community would be at a standstill at that annual fixture for 3 days that was being played. And that went on for 33 years. And then the East Africa thing came in there used to be Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. In the 50s, there would be matches against each other.
Yeah.
But it formalized more in 1966 when this annual tournament took place between the four countries. And at that time, there were about 8 or 9 countries that were at international level. So you had the Australia, the England, the New Zealand, India,
playing.
Pakistan, playing. And so East Africa, there was always a special feeling from England because England was controlling the cricket. And so they said we're having the first World Cup in 1975, so East Africa will be representing. There were no qualifying rounds at that time. So by default, East Africa played the first World Cup. That was in 1975, where it consisted of Kenya, players from Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, and Malawi and Zambia. That's how it started. And then the second World Cup took place in 1979. Again, East Africa represented in this tournament. But at that very stage, Kenya, because what happened in those two tournaments, it became a quota system of selection, meaning you had to have players from Kenya, even if players were not good enough from Tanzania, you had to take a couple of from Uganda, and so it needed to be mixed because Kenya was a very strong cricketing nation, so it could represent on its own. So at that very time, and I must applaud what the association, Kenyan Cricket Association, did then. They felt at that very stage that they were ripe enough or ready enough to be a member on its own at international level. So in 1981, Kenya got the membership at the International Cricket Conference to be coming out of East Africa and now become Kenya as a member on its own. And that journey was a very important journey and a start of where we talk about in the 90s and where we reached to the cricket that we reached. And so that's a little brief history of how Kenya cricket up to 1981.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's very important to get the context, and I'm grateful that you brought that out. So you obviously now become a national cricket player, but you still loved tennis.
Oh, very much.
So now, how are you handling this chaos now? Because now, on both levels, your leg is being pulled on one side and it's being pulled on the other side. So I'm assuming you're still living in Mombasa. How are you handling all this?
Yeah, correct. Now, I mean, even though I played cricket for the national team in 1980, I was very much known in tennis. I was already a junior champion. I became a national champion in junior tennis.
Yes.
I then became senior champion in Mombasa. After my dad retired, my elder brother won the tournament, and the following year I won the tournament. So there was all tennis, and cricket was just a social thing. And then I'm finishing my undergraduate. I'm finishing my high school on O levels. And so now what next? So again, I give a huge credit to my parents for organizing something that was unheard of in those days. Through his network, through our own performance, we managed to get a tennis scholarship in America. So after my Zimbabwe tour, I won a junior tournament for under 18. That gave me the opportunity to play tennis in Europe. So I was on a 6-week tour in summer of 1981, where I was fortunate even to play the French Open junior tournament in Paris. And then played in Belgium, played in Italy, played in England. Unfortunately, I did not get a chance to play Wimbledon. That's something I still feel bad about it, because in those days, by the time the entry forms were sent to England, it was too late. The period had closed. I wish there were emails those days, because that would have been an instant. But it went through the post and all that. So unfortunately, I didn't get to play, but we were there during Wimbledon in 81, the junior. So, but we managed to watch with my parents. My father was my coach and manager on that tour. And so everything kind of was like tailor-made for me, because I played the national cricket for Zimbabwe. 2 months later, I win the junior tournament of under 18. Got selected to represent the country. Go to a 6-week tour to Europe, and then I'm ready for the fall of 1981 to go to the USA on a tennis scholarship.
Where did you go to?
I went to Palm Beach Junior College, which is in Lake Worth, West Palm Beach,
Florida.
About an hour from Miami, Florida.
Is this because, if I'm not wrong, the Williams sisters also, I know they're from LA, but I think they did part of something big they did in Miami. I think it's a big place in terms of tennis, in terms of a state.
Yes, Florida and California are big in tennis. There's huge tennis academies in Florida. So they must have played a lot of tennis in those two areas. So I was 2 years in West Palm Beach. It was a junior college. So once you graduate from there, you now need to go to a university to do your year 3 and year 4. So I applied to various universities. I had scholarships in various universities that I got, because I had, again, 2 good years in the junior college. But I decided to go to Harvard University in Washington, D.C. So my 3rd and 4th year, and that 2 years, in my view, was the defining moment, a defining period to what I am today.
Or the final 2 years.
Those final 2 years were very important years for me. I was excited living in Washington, D.C. Two, I'm in a predominantly a black school because the 2 years in junior college was predominantly a white school. So I experienced that bit. I then experienced predominantly a black school, which surprisingly, to tell you, the amount of prejudice and racism among the blacks was a huge eye-opener, because remember, you had blacks from Africa.
Yes.
You had in Africa, you had blacks from East Africa. You had from West Africa. Then you got blacks from Europe. Then you got blacks from America, from the East Coast, West Coast, South. Then you've got the Caribbean blacks who are there from different islands. Now each one had their own culture. They had their own thought process, and there was a lot of rivalry among those. So it was a very unique experience, when you think that there's only prejudice or racism between the whites and the blacks. So there's racism within everybody, unfortunately.
Oh my.
Yeah, so it was a very unique experience. I met a lot of people in those 4.5 years that I was in America. I grew as an individual, because remember, I came from a very small town, lived in a cocoon. Now you're going to another world out there to realize that, there's a huge world out there. So I had to become stronger. The situation made it stronger. I met a lot of people. I learned a lot about myself on that vision, and a lot of wonderful things happened in my 4 years in America.
Yeah, well, we've spoken a lot about this foundational moment, which I believe is very important. But there's something you've mentioned, which I felt that we can maybe talk a minute or two about it, which is a scholarship. Because I know there's someone who's watching and there's someone who's listening and has heard that you got a sports scholarship. So help me understand, when you're given a scholarship, what does that mean?